Hi, Arcfieldweather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, October the 6th. Quite an interesting weather pattern coming to the eastern part of the U.S. over the next several days. It could involve a strong western Atlantic low this upcoming weekend. Whether it becomes a named tropical storm or not, too early to say, but nonetheless, there is a chance for a strong western Atlantic low that could impact any region from the Carolina coastline up north along the mid-Atlantic coastline into the northeastern U.S. Coastline probably during the second half of the upcoming weekend into the early part of next week. That will be certainly a main player to monitor, it looks like, later this week going into the upcoming weekend. This is the latest official map of tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin by NOAA's National Hurricane Center. It does indeed have one tropical system way out here over the eastern part of the Atlantic Ocean. Has a good chance of becoming a named tropical storm over the coming days. But there is an area right in this region, right here, and we'll see that in the satellite imagery in a moment here, that is of interest here. This is the area, this is the system right here that could become a named tropical storm, but whether or not it becomes a named tropical storm, it looks like there will indeed be a strong low pressure area forming right in this region here later this week going into the upcoming weekend. It could impact a large part of the eastern seaboard here, especially from the Carolinas northward. I'm talking about some heavy rainfall, some strong winds here. Again, too early to say whether or not the Hurricane Center will actually name it as a tropical storm, but again, nonetheless, this is going to be an area to watch during the upcoming weekend. Well, here's the latest satellite imagery using the Goes East satellite system. It's what they call a geocolor composite imagery here with mostly infrared, but at the very end you can see some visible imagery showing up here as the sun starts to have an effect from the east to the west. But this is the area of interest right here. There's a complex of showers and thunderstorms over the Bahamas. It will kind of hang around in this area over the next few days, consolidate by later this week into the upcoming weekend, and then it could ride right up along the Atlantic seaboard in that Saturday, Sunday, Monday time frame. Certainly of interest to all residents along the Carolina coastline and also the mid-Atlantic coastline and northeast U.S. coastline. Again, whether or not it becomes a named tropical storm, too early to say, but certainly looks like a strong Atlantic low will be in this area over the upcoming weekend into the early part of next week. We'll talk about some of the factors involved over the next couple of minutes, and some very consistent forecasting between three of the models here, the European, the Canadian, and the GFS, all feature the system in a similar fashion for the weekend into the early part of next week. Well, we've often talked about the importance of a high-pressure ridging, higher heights than normal over the southeastern part of Canada this time of the year to enhance the chance that a tropical system can make its way from the western Atlantic Ocean into the Gulf, into the Caribbean Sea, into the Bahamas, anywhere in that southwestern Atlantic area here. We have a strong ridge, as we do to start the work week, by the way, right here as of Monday morning. We have a strong ridge here, but this tends to redevelop later this week into the upcoming weekend, and you can get these tropical systems that kind of undercut that ridge, moving in this kind of direction from the east to the west. So this is something we watch for. Now, over the next couple of days, this will not result in a tropical system, but watch what happens as we progress through the week here. Again, this is a key area to watch. This ridge currently set up over the southeastern part of Canada, and it disappears as an incoming trough moves in from the Hudson Bay region into eastern Canada by the middle part of the week. And by the way, this will feature a strong cold front that passes through the mid-Atlantic region by the time we get to the middle part of the week, leading to a much cooler second half of the week in the northeast, in the mid-Atlantic region. But then as we get to the latter part of the week into the upcoming weekend, here's the Friday, forecast map, and we'll go into Saturday and finally into the day on Sunday. Here we have that strong ridging redeveloping over the eastern part of Canada, and indeed that could allow for tropical activity to work their way westward from the western Atlantic Ocean to the eastern seaboard. This is a trough associated with that potential tropical storm. Again, I'm not sure if Hurricane Center will actually name this as a tropical storm. Nonetheless, looks like there'll be a pretty strong western Atlantic low as we progress through the upcoming weekend into the early part of next week. We'll go a little past this time period into a week from right now, next Monday, October the 13th. Very, very strong ridging over southeastern Canada and a strong trough associated with that Atlantic low here by the time we get to the early part of next week, right along the Carolina mid-Atlantic coastline here. Again, something we'll have to closely monitor. Potentially could bring some heavy rain and strong winds anywhere from the Carolinas up north to the mid-Atlantic region and the northeast U.S., especially along coastal sections. Well, let's walk through the surface forecast maps of the GFS and then the Canadian and then the European. I don't often show multiple models here, but very, very consistent between the three for this potential scenario over the upcoming weekend, in that there will be a strong western Atlantic low possibly impacting the Carolinas, the mid-Atlantic, the northeast U.S. Here we are beginning of the work week. This is the GFS model run from 0Z last night, and I mentioned the cold frontal system. Here's that cold frontal system as of later in the day on Tuesday, pushing to the south and east, and we'll have a very warm start to the week in the mid-Atlantic region with well above normal temperatures today and again on Tuesday. But that changes quite dramatically by the time we get to the second half of the work week following a cold front passage. That cold front brings some showers, maybe some decent rainfall with some thunderstorms included from later tomorrow night into the day on Wednesday. And here we go. That passes on Thursday, and a very strong surface high pressure ridging moving into the southeastern part of Canada. We still have kind of an active area off the southeast U.S. coastline right here. It's not a consolidated system by the time we get to Thursday, but watch what happens beyond that time period. You have the development, kind of an intensification of this area off the southeast U.S. coastline by the time we get to Saturday morning, ultimately resulting in low pressure here. Again, whether or not it becomes a named tropical storm or not, just too early to say, but high pressure setting up over the northeast U.S. And this is an important part of the whole pattern here, is this high pressure up here combined with this intensifying low down here will set up a pretty strong fetch of air into the Carolinas, into the coastal sections of the mid-Atlantic region from the east to the west, an east to northeast flow of air. Winds flow clockwise around highs and counterclockwise around lows, and this indeed could set up quite impressive onshore flow of air in this part of the eastern U.S. by the time we get to Saturday morning or so. Now let's clear the page and go on a little bit farther in time. And here we go. We have this low. By the way, right off to the edge here, you see that second tropical system that is now way out over the eastern Atlantic. That is not the player we're watching here. We're watching the kind of the development of a system right in this area later this week into the upcoming weekend. And once it's there, with that strong high pressure ridge right up in this part of North America, it has the ability to kind of back to the west here. That's the ridge we often talk about. This in this area that makes it more favorable for western Atlantic lows to impact the eastern seaboard. Now, let's move forward. This is Saturday night and then going into the day on Sunday morning. Quite a healthy looking low pressure area. Notice here, kind of backing to the north and west with some potential rainfall and strong winds right along the Carolina coast, mid-Atlantic coastline, into the northeast U.S. Again, don't know if it'll become a named tropical system. Nonetheless, it will have characteristics of a strong tropical system, namely heavy rain and strong winds right along the Atlantic seaboard here. This is into the day on Monday, and again, it backs to the west by a week from right now. And one of the reasons, again, is that strong upper level ridge setting up, kind of redeveloping in the southeastern part and kind of allowing for that backing to the west, or what we call retrograding of a western Atlantic low right to the coastline. So all of these, this area right here has to pay attention to this system here, and we'll certainly focus in on it later this week going into the upcoming weekend. Now, let me just show the other couple of models here. Let's go to the Canadian model right here and watch this. Quite amazing consistency between these models. The first model was the GFS, and now we have kind of a similar scenario. I'll walk quickly through it. Here comes that cold front. This is on the Canadian model for the middle of the week. And then we get into the end of the week and the same kind of a pattern here with high pressure setting up to the north and east. And that area consolidating into low pressure here. By the time we get to Saturday morning, here is that intensifying low with strong high pressure up in this part of southeastern Canada. Here's that other tropical system that's now over the far eastern Atlantic. We'll go a little forward in time. Just like the GFS, the Canadian model, kind of backs this system to the north and west here, impacting the mid-Atlantic coastline. And by the time we get to the second half of the upcoming weekend, the northeast U.S. coastline. And again, whether or not it becomes a named tropical storm, it sure looks like a tropical storm here by the time we get to the second half of the upcoming weekend. This is all the way out to a week from right now, next Monday, which would be October 13th. So again, consistency between the GFS and the Canadian model. Now let's take a look at the European model. Same sort of pattern here, setting up here. This is the third model. And when you see consistency between multiple models, it certainly adds confidence to the forecast that it will turn out that way. In this case, with an impact along the Carolina coast, the Mid-Atlantic coast, the northeast U.S. coast from a western Atlantic low certainly by the second half of the upcoming weekend. Here we go into the day on Thursday. Same sort of scenario with this European model run from 0Z last night. Namely high pressure building into southeastern Canada. That cold frontal system tends to stall out right in this area here. This also becomes an important player here. I didn't mention that earlier, but that cold front passes through the mid-Atlantic region and kind of helps set the stage here for intensification of that low pressure system over the southwestern Atlantic. And here we go into the day on Friday, and all of this is starting to intensify with that stalled out frontal boundary zone right in there. That kind of acts as provides some juice to the whole pattern here, some atmospheric fuel to the fire here. Is a good way to describe it here. Along that frontal boundary zone, you'll see that intensification of low pressure. Here we go into the day on Saturday. Strong low pressure forming right here. And again, all areas from the Carolinas north and east have to pay attention to this situation. The European model also has this system backing up north and west. Notice those last few frames here. It backs up to the north and west by the time we get to Sunday, and then into the day on Monday. This is a week from right now, October the 13th, with that low pressure area right over, in this particular model run, the Delmarva Peninsula, the Chesapeake Bay area. And again, here's that key player with that strong high pressure to the north. So very interesting weather pattern here. A strong cold front moves from northwest to southeast across the mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. later tomorrow night into the day on Wednesday. It then drives to the southwestern Atlantic, stalls out, and it helps to intensify low pressure that is kind of trying to form right now over the Bahamas, and it will be able to intensify late this week and then potentially right along the Atlantic seaboard. Again, whether or not it becomes a named tropical storm, just too early to say what NOAA's National Hurricane Center will do. Nonetheless, potential exists for some heavy rain and strong winds from the Carolinas to the Mid-Atlantic to the northeast U.S. later this weekend into the early part of next week. Something we'll monitor very closely here at arcfieldweather.com over the next several days. That's it for now. For arcfieldweather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.